I think I didn't do anything wrong, just made a joke everyone laughed at. I said our neighbor was dangerously charming while standing next to my husband. It was supposed to be funny, until I saw the way he looked at me, calm and certain, and heard him say he'd call his lawyer in the morning. That's when I realized I'd pushed one joke too far. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The night of the party was supposed to be perfect. I'd spent a week planning everything, the lights strung across the backyard, the playlist just loud enough to sound effortless, the wine picked to impress without trying too hard. Our 5th anniversary, a small celebration with neighbors and a few of Graham's co-workers. I told everyone it was casual, but I made sure every detail sparkled. I wanted people to remember it as our night, or maybe, if I'm honest, as my night. By 8, the yard was full of laughter. Carla was helping me pass around appetizers when Mason arrived. He was our new neighbor, the one with the smile people noticed, the one who waved when I jogged past his house. He came alone, wearing a dark shirt that fit him a little too well. I noticed Graham glance up as Mason hugged me in greeting, that half-second flicker of something tight in his eyes. I felt it, and I liked it. Graham was polite, as always. He shook Mason's hand, offered him a drink, and went back to talking with Jonas, one of his co-workers. I should have left it there, but the wine made me bold. When Mason joked that I'd outdone myself with the setup, I said loudly, "Careful, you'll make my husband jealous." People laughed. Mason laughed. Graham didn't. Carla nudged me. "You're terrible," she whispered, grinning. "It's harmless," I said, smiling for the crowd. An hour later, as the music got louder and people loosened up, I saw Mason near the grill talking to Paula, my mother-in-law, who never hid her disapproval of me. She looked stiff, uncomfortable. I joined them, determined to charm her. "Paula," I said, sliding next to Mason, "you've met our handsome neighbor, right? He's single, by the way." Paula gave me that thin smile of hers. "I can see that." Mason chuckled. "You're going to get me in trouble." "Oh, please," I said, rolling my eyes. "Graham's not the jealous type. I could flirt with the whole block, and he'd just keep checking his emails." That one landed exactly as I wanted. Light enough for a laugh, sharp enough to sting. People around us laughed, and I basked in it. The kind of laughter that fills the air and makes you feel powerful. But then I saw Graham across the yard, frozen mid-sentence with Jonas, staring straight at me. Our eyes met. He didn't look angry. He just looked finished. I tried to smooth it over with another joke. "Careful, Mason, I might just run away next door if you keep complimenting me like that." More laughter. Someone whistled. Even Mason raised his glass and said, "I'll leave the door open." The laughter grew louder, but Graham's silence spread like a shadow. He put his drink down and walked toward the house. I called after him lightly, "Hey, where are you going? Party's still on." He didn't answer. He just disappeared inside. Carla frowned. "He's fine. He's probably just tired," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, forcing a laugh. "You know how he gets moody." But the moment had soured. I could feel it. People started whispering. Paula excused herself and went after Graham, her expression hard to read. I refilled my glass and pretended nothing was wrong. Mason tried to keep the mood light, joking about needing another burger, and I laughed along, louder than before. I thought if I kept smiling, the air would loosen again. But even I could feel the shift. The fun had turned brittle. After another half hour, most guests started to leave. The laughter sounded rehearsed now, the goodbyes rushed. I told myself I'd talk to Graham later, smooth it over like always. He hated public drama, but he always cooled off. That was the rule between us. I pushed, he withdrew, and eventually I charmed him back. When the last guest left, the house felt too big. The clinking of glasses in the sink sounded sharp. I walked into the living room and found Graham sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. You could at least pretend to have fun, I said lightly. He didn't look up. Fun, he repeated. That's what that was? Come on, Graham, you know me. I was just joking. He set his phone down slowly. Do you know what I texted Jonas just now? I frowned. What? He met my eyes, calm and deliberate. I asked if he knew a good family lawyer. I blinked, a laugh caught halfway in my throat. You're joking now, right? He stood up. I'm not. Over one comment, I said. Are you serious? I'm serious, he said quietly. You made me a punchline. Again. But this time, I'm done laughing. I took a step forward. You're being dramatic. Everyone knew it was harmless. Everyone except me, he said. The words were soft but final. He picked up his jacket, grabbed his keys, and started toward the door. Where are you going? I asked. Somewhere I don't have to compete with your audience, he said, opening the door. Graham, don't you dare walk out over this. He paused on the threshold. You've turned everything into a show, Iris. Congratulations. The crowd loved it. The door shut quietly behind him. No slam, no curse. Just that soft click that felt like a verdict. I stood there for a long time, the laughter from earlier still echoing in my head, fading into nothing. On the counter, the half-empty bottle of wine looked absurd, like a prop from a play I didn't know had ended. I told myself he'd be back by morning, that he always cooled off. But as I replayed his voice, steady, calm, unshaken, I realized this time sounded different. This wasn't anger. It was decision. The morning after the party, the house felt like someone had turned the volume down on my life. No clinking dishes, no low hum from the radio Graham usually turned on while making breakfast. Just silence and the faint smell of wine from last night. His side of the bed was empty, perfectly smooth, as if he hadn't even tried to sleep there. I tried calling him once, twice, 5 times. No answer. I left a message, keeping my tone light. Graham, you overreacted, that's all. Call me when you're ready to laugh about it. I spent the next hour cleaning, scrubbing counters that were already spotless, just to keep my hands busy. Every now and then, my phone buzzed with messages from guests. Great party. Hope you two didn't kill each other after that joke. You're wild, Iris. I forced myself to laugh as I typed back, oh, you know me, always joking around. But every time I hit send, the knot in my stomach tightened. By noon, I called Carla. He's not answering, I said. She yawned. He probably just needs space. He's sensitive. He's not sensitive, I snapped. He's stubborn. There's a difference. Either way, she said, don't chase him. He loves when you chase him. That gives him control. I rolled my eyes. I'm not chasing. I just want to fix this before he turns it into something huge. Carla hesitated. He looked pretty done last night, Iris. You should have seen his face when you said that thing about running away next door. I exhaled hard. It was a joke. Not to him, she said softly. After hanging up, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the spot where Graham had been standing when he said he'd texted Jonas about a lawyer. The words replayed in my head on a loop. He'd said them so calmly. That's what made them terrifying. He wasn't trying to scare me. He was announcing something inevitable. Around 3, I heard a knock. It was Paula. She didn't even wait for me to invite her in. She walked straight to the kitchen, her face tight. I told him not to come here, she said, setting her purse down, but he said he needed time. I crossed my arms. You've spoken to him? He called this morning, she said. He's staying with a friend for now. So, he's really doing this? I asked. She looked at me for a long moment. You humiliated him, Iris. Again. I groaned. You make it sound like I committed a crime. It was one sentence. One sentence heard by everyone who knows you both, she said sharply. Do you have any idea what that does to a man like Graham? He's quiet, but he's proud. I didn't mean it like that. But you said it, she replied. And you laughed when they laughed. I felt my throat tighten. He's making this bigger than it is. Paula gave a small, humorless smile. No, you've just mistaken silence for tolerance. They're not the same thing. She left soon after, leaving her words behind like sharp little splinters in the air. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in the living room, scrolling through photos from the party. Everyone looked happy, even Graham, up until that last photo. In it, he stood at the edge of the group, hands in pockets, watching me and Mason laugh. He wasn't glaring, just distant, as if he'd already checked out of the moment. I tried to sleep, but kept hearing that line. Do you know a good family lawyer? By morning, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I drove to his office. The receptionist looked startled to see me. Mrs. Vale? She said carefully. Graham isn't here. Can you tell me when he'll be back? She shook her head. He took a leave of absence. He said it was personal. My chest went cold. Did he say where he went? I'm sorry. No. I left before she could ask questions. In the parking lot, I sat in my car gripping the steering wheel. The image of him calmly collecting his things at work, not telling anyone why, filled me with a strange mix of anger and disbelief. He couldn't really mean to leave. He was bluffing. He always avoided confrontation, and this was just another version of it. That's what I told myself as I drove home. But then, later that afternoon, an email arrived. It was from him. Subject, boundaries. The message was short. I'll be staying elsewhere for a while. Please don't contact me or my colleagues. You can reach my lawyer if you need to discuss the house or finances. No greeting, no signature. Just cold, typed distance. I reread it 3 times before replying. You're not doing this, Graham. You're making a fool of yourself over nothing. I hesitated, then deleted it. I wasn't giving him that satisfaction. Instead, I called Carla again. He's really gone, I said. He's emailed me through a lawyer now. She sighed. Maybe you should apologize. I will, when he stops acting like a martyr. Then maybe he won't stop, she said quietly. That evening, I sat outside with a blanket, watching the house next door. Mason's lights were on, shadows moving across his windows. He'd texted me that morning. Rough night? Didn't mean to stir trouble. I hadn't answered. Now, staring at that glowing window, I wondered if Graham thought I actually meant what I'd said. Maybe that's what made it hurt him most. Not the words, but the idea that he couldn't be sure. I whispered into the night. You'll come back when you're ready. But deep down, even as the words left my mouth, I knew something had changed. For years, I'd laughed off every argument, confident I could charm my way out of anything. But this time, Graham wasn't angry. He wasn't sulking. He was gone, and it wasn't temporary. It hit me then. He hadn't stormed out. He'd walked away quietly, because he'd already made peace with losing me. By the end of the week, everyone in the neighborhood knew something had happened. It started with glances, neighbors waving less, conversations that stopped when I passed. Then came the whispers. Carla texted me a screenshot from the community group chat. Someone had written, "So, what's going on with the Vales? Heard she got a little too friendly with the neighbor at their party." I stared at the message until the words blurred. The post had a dozen laughing emojis beneath it. I called Carla immediately. "Who posted that?" "Somebody named Tessa," she said. "Don't worry, I told her to mind her business." "People love drama," I said, trying to sound casual. But the truth was, it stung. Not because it was true, at least not how they meant it, but because Graham's silence gave their story power. Without his side, the rumor was all anyone had. At work, it was worse. The event studio I ran relied on charm and reputation, and suddenly both were slipping. Clients canceled meetings, emails came slower. Even my assistant, Zoe, looked uneasy around me. When she handed me a folder one morning, she said quietly, "I saw something online about you and Mason. Is everything okay?" I forced a laugh. People love to twist things. My husband's just dramatic. She gave a small, uncertain smile. "Well, I hope it blows over." I nodded, pretending not to notice the way she avoided eye contact. At lunch, I scrolled through Mason's social media. He'd posted a photo of his backyard with the caption, "New beginnings look good from here." My heart jumped. The photo showed part of our shared fence and the corner of my garden table. The comments were full of jokes. "Your neighbor's cute, Mason. Lucky guy." I called him immediately. "What are you doing?" He sounded amused. "Relax, Iris. It's just a picture." "You know people are talking." He chuckled. "Let them. It's free entertainment." "This isn't funny," I said. "Didn't seem like a problem when you started the joke." He replied, voice suddenly colder. I hung up, shaking. For the first time, I realized Mason enjoyed the attention more than I did. That evening, Paula showed up again. She stood on my doorstep holding an envelope. "He asked me to deliver this," she said. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a notice of legal separation. I read it twice before looking up. "He actually filed." Paula's voice was soft. "He's not playing around anymore." I laughed bitterly. "So, this is how he communicates now? Through his mother?" Her expression didn't change. "He's tired, Iris. He told me he'd spent years trying to explain how your jokes made him feel small. You laughed every time. Now he's done explaining." "People fight," I said, trying to hold on to the last bit of pride. "It doesn't mean you end a marriage over it." She tilted her head. "Maybe not. But he didn't leave because of one fight. He left because you turned every apology into a punchline." She walked away before I could answer. That night, I scrolled through my messages, tempted to call him. Instead, I drafted another email. "We need to talk." "You're being ridiculous, Graham. Everyone is talking, and you're letting them think the worst." I hovered over send for a full minute before closing it. I could already imagine his silence. The next morning, Jonas, his co-worker, called me. His voice was hesitant. "I shouldn't be saying this, but Graham's filed the paperwork. He's serious." I laughed, though it sounded hollow. "He'll come to his senses." "I don't think so," Jonas said. "He said he's never felt this calm in his life." That one line hit harder than anything. Calm. As if walking away from me was peace. When I hung up, I went to the backyard. The string lights from the party were still hanging there, a few bulbs burnt out. The air smelled faintly of wine and smoke. I sat at the patio table where I'd stood laughing that night. The memory replayed in perfect detail. Mason's grin, the laughter, the clinking glasses, Graham's steady stare. I thought I was winning something. Now the yard looked like an abandoned stage. Carla came by later with takeout. She tried to cheer me up, talking fast. "You just need to get ahead of the story. Post something light, something funny. Make people think you're unbothered." I shook my head. "That's what got me here." She sighed. "So what? You're just going to hide?" "Maybe I should," I said quietly. She looked at me for a long moment, then said, "I think you liked the power more than the person." I wanted to snap back, but I didn't. Because maybe she was right. That night, a message from Graham's lawyer arrived. "All correspondence regarding the marriage should go through this office. Mr. Vale will not be responding to personal messages." The words blurred. It wasn't anger that broke me this time. It was the finality. The man who used to walk on eggshells around my moods had become the one drawing boundaries. I closed my laptop and went outside again. Mason's lights were on next door. For a moment, I thought about walking over, pretending none of this mattered. But I didn't move. Instead, I whispered to the empty yard, "You win, Graham. You finally win." The night didn't answer. It just sat heavy around me, quiet and merciless. The following week, I tried to pretend life was normal. I reopened the studio, scheduled small events, and forced myself to smile at clients. But the whispers never stopped. Every time the door opened, I expected someone to bring up my marriage, or worse, the neighbor. One morning, Zoe hesitated before handing me a clipboard. "You might want to check this," she said. It was an email from a client canceling a major event. The reason line read, "Personal reputation concerns." I felt heat rush up my neck. Did they say what they meant? Zoe looked uncomfortable. They mentioned the party video. My stomach dropped. What video? She showed me her phone. Someone had posted a clip from our anniversary party, me laughing beside Mason, wine in hand, saying, "Careful, Mason, I might just run away next door." The laughter from guests filled the background. In the corner of the frame, Graham's face was visible for a second, expressionless. Then he turned and walked inside. The post had hundreds of comments. "Can't blame the husband. Imagine being married to that. She thinks she's funny, but she's cruel." I grabbed the phone, turned it off, and pushed it back to Zoe. "It's taken out of context," I said, my voice shaking. "I know," she said gently, "but people believe what they see." I couldn't work after that. I went home and poured myself a drink, staring at the reflection of the lights in the glass. That one clip had erased everything: my career, my reputation, my privacy. By evening, Paula called again. Her tone was calm but cold. "You should take the video down." "I can't. It's not mine," I said. "Then stop feeding it. Every time you defend yourself, you prove them right." "You think I deserve this?" She hesitated. "I think you invited it." I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a bitter laugh. "You've always hated me." "I never hated you," she said quietly. "I just knew what you were capable of before you did." The line went dead. Later that night, I decided to host another event, a charity dinner at the studio. I needed to prove to everyone, including Graham, that I was still in control, that I could recover. I spent 2 days preparing. I invited colleagues, clients, even Mason, thinking his presence might make things look normal again. On the night of the dinner, people arrived stiff, polite, cautious. The laughter was forced, the conversations clipped. Mason stood in the corner, smiling awkwardly. "You look tense," he said when I walked past. I kept my voice steady. "Because I'm fixing a mess you helped make." He raised his hands. "Hey, I didn't post that video." "No, but you didn't stop it either." He shrugged. "You didn't seem to mind when everyone was laughing." His words hit harder than I wanted to admit. I walked away, leaving him by the bar. Halfway through the night, I noticed Carla hadn't shown up. When she finally texted, all she wrote was, "Can't make it. Things are too messy right now." The dinner dragged on painfully. People left early, murmuring excuses about early mornings. By 10, the studio was almost empty. I stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by half-eaten plates and abandoned glasses, feeling like a performer after the audience walked out mid-show. The next morning, I saw the headline on a local gossip page: Iris Vale's redemption event flops. Husband files for asset division. My phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters wanted statements. Former clients sent vague messages about restructuring future plans. And then, around noon, I got an email from Graham's lawyer confirming what the headline said. He was dividing everything: the house, the car, the savings. There was even an appointment date for mediation. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. He hadn't spoken a single word to me since the night of the party, yet his decisions kept arriving like quiet verdicts. I drove home, parked in the driveway, and sat there for a long time. The yard still looked perfect, the same string lights, the same patio, but the house itself felt like someone else's now. That evening, I saw a "for sale" sign being hammered into the front lawn. My hands started shaking. I ran outside. "Wait! What are you doing?" I shouted at the real estate agent. She looked up, startled. Mrs. Vale? I'm sorry, Mr. Vale said to post this today. He doesn't live here anymore, I said. She checked her clipboard. Actually, both names are still on the title. He's authorized it. I stood there speechless as she drove away. The sign swayed slightly in the breeze, bright red against the manicured grass. That night, I sent one last email to Graham. You don't have to sell the house. I'll leave if that's what you want. Just stop making this public. No reply. The next morning, a reply arrived, but from his lawyer. All matters will proceed as filed. Mr. Vale requests no further direct communication. I read the message again and again, hoping for something human between the lines. There was nothing. Just formal language, polite, professional, final. I went outside and stood by the for sale sign, watching the quiet street. Mason's blinds were closed. No one waved. For the first time in years, the neighborhood was silent toward me. And for the first time, I realized what silence from Graham really meant. It wasn't punishment. It was the end of the show. 2 weeks after the for sale sign went up, I finally got the call from Graham's lawyer. His voice was neutral, professional. Mrs. Vale, we'll need you to come in Tuesday morning to review the asset division. I asked, will Graham be there? Yes, but he's requested that all communication go through counsel. Please refrain from personal remarks during the meeting. It felt like a warning disguised as courtesy. I thanked him anyway and hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching everything: the back of the couch, the kitchen counter, the doorknob to our bedroom, as if I could memorize the shape of our life before it officially ended. Every corner of the house whispered with old echoes: his quiet laugh, my sarcastic comments, the clinking of wine glasses from better nights. By Tuesday morning, I had rehearsed what I would say if I got a chance to speak directly to him. I'd remind him that we were just two people who said stupid things sometimes, that we'd survived worse, that our marriage didn't deserve to be dismantled over a single moment of pride. When I arrived at the law office, he was already there. He looked calm, too calm. He wore a navy shirt I'd bought him for his birthday 2 years ago. Seeing him in it made my throat tighten. He didn't look at me. His lawyer began reading through the agreements, his tone flat. Mr. Vale will retain the savings account. Mrs. Vale will maintain ownership of the studio. The house proceeds will be divided equally. I barely heard him. I was watching Graham, waiting for a flicker of something: anger, regret, anything that looked like the man I knew, but his expression stayed steady, his gaze fixed on the papers. At one point, I couldn't help myself. Graham, I said softly, can we talk? Just the two of us? His lawyer didn't even look up. Please keep to the agenda, Mrs. Vale. Graham finally spoke, his voice even. There's nothing to discuss that isn't already in writing. Nothing? I asked, incredulous. After 5 years? He looked at me then, just for a second, and it was the calmest expression I'd ever seen on him. 5 years is why I'm being careful now, he said. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to remind him that this was partly his fault too, that his silence always drove me crazy, that I had just wanted him to feel something. But the look in his eyes stopped me. It wasn't anger, it was pity. When the meeting ended, I waited until he and his lawyer were gathering their things. You're really not going to say anything to me? I asked. He paused. I said everything I needed to when I didn't walk out sooner. And then he left. I sat there long after everyone was gone, staring at the empty chairs. The quiet hum of the air conditioner filled the room, steady and indifferent. Later that day, I called Carla. He's like a stranger, I said. He doesn't even look at me. She was quiet for a moment. Maybe he's protecting himself. From what? From you, she said softly. He's not angry anymore, Iris. He's relieved. I wanted to hang up, but I didn't. Her words sat there between us like a stone. That evening, I opened my laptop. The gossip pages had moved on from the original scandal, but new posts appeared, screenshots from the party video, now edited with captions. Someone had slowed down the frame showing Graham's face. The caption read, "The moment he realized she wasn't joking." Hundreds of comments. Sympathy for him. Disgust for me. I closed the laptop. A few hours later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me hoped it was him. It wasn't. It was his lawyer. "Mrs. Vale," he said. "Mr. Vale asked me to deliver a brief personal message." My breath caught. "What message?" He read from a piece of paper. He said, "Tell her I hope she finally understands that attention isn't the same as affection." I pressed a hand to my mouth. "That's all?" "That's all." The call ended, leaving me alone in the dim light of the kitchen. I looked around at the remnants of the life I'd turned into a stage, the empty wine glasses, the string lights still hanging in the backyard. I thought of the way Graham used to stand in that yard, quietly fixing things I never noticed were broken. He never needed applause. He just did it. And I'd laughed at that calmness, called it boring, mistook it for weakness. Now I understood what it really was. Peace. Later that night, I walked outside. The for sale sign still stood, leaning slightly from the wind. Across the street, Mason's house was dark. He'd moved out 2 days ago. For the first time, the whole neighborhood felt hollow. I whispered into the quiet, "You got what you wanted, Graham. Everyone's on your side." But even as I said it, I knew he hadn't wanted sides. He'd only wanted distance. I went back inside, poured myself a drink, and sat at the kitchen table. The house groaned softly as the wind shifted outside. I stared at the untouched glass for a long time before pushing it away. Because for once, I finally understood why Graham had stopped drinking, stopped laughing, stopped trying. When peace becomes the only thing left to fight for, walking away isn't cruelty. It's survival. It's strange how quickly a house can stop feeling like yours. By the time the realtor called to confirm the first showing, I was already packing boxes, though no one had told me to. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the creak in the hallway floor, felt like it belonged to someone else now. I took down the string lights in the backyard last. Their soft bulbs still held faint traces of laughter from that night, the one I thought was harmless fun. I coiled the wire carefully, as if I could somehow rewind time with it. Paula came by in the afternoon. She stood at the doorway, hands clasped. "I wanted to check in," she said. I nodded but didn't invite her to sit. "He's not talking to me, if that's what you came to ask." She sighed. "He doesn't need to. He said all he needed to say." "I'm still his wife," I murmured. "Not anymore," she said gently. The words landed heavier than I expected. "Does he—" I swallowed. "Does he seem happier?" Her expression softened. "He seems lighter." "That's not the same as happy, but it's close." I laughed quietly, shaking my head. All this because of a stupid joke. She studied me for a long moment. "It wasn't the joke, Iris. It was what the joke meant." When she left, I sat on the couch surrounded by boxes. Her words circled in my head like a truth I'd been avoiding. That evening, I went for a walk. The air was cool, the neighborhood quiet. I passed Mason's house, empty now, sold faster than I'd expected. His windows were dark, the curtains drawn. For once, there was no shadow moving behind them, no echo of laughter. A for sale sign still stood in front of mine, leaning slightly from the wind. I touched it absently, the metal cold under my fingers. Everything about it felt final. Back inside, I found one last envelope on the kitchen counter, left by the realtor. Inside was the final settlement letter, stamped and sealed. It stated in careful typed lines that the funds had been transferred, the sale processed, and the divorce finalized. I read the words slowly. Each one felt like a nail hammered quietly into the frame of a life I'd built on performance. At the bottom, his signature, steady, legible, detached, no note, no final line, just Graham Vale. For a long time, I stared at it, waiting to feel anger. But there was nothing. Only the dull ache of knowing this was the only ending I'd earned. Later, I opened the windows. The wind carried in the faint sounds of distant laughter. Someone's barbecue, maybe. Another couple's friends gathering in their yard. Once, I would have been jealous of the attention, determined to be louder than them. But now, the quiet was almost merciful. I poured tea instead of wine and sat at the kitchen table. The light above me flickered slightly, reflecting in the surface of the cup. I thought about all the nights I'd mocked him for being too calm, too contained, how I'd teased him just to make him react, believing his restraint meant he didn't care. Now I knew restraint had been love, just a kind of love I was too restless to recognize. At some point, I opened my phone and scrolled through our old messages. The earlier ones were full of warmth, reminders about groceries, silly photos, quick love yous. Then the tone changed, his short, careful replies to my sarcastic comments, the polite distance growing between each exchange. I hadn't seen it before, the slow unraveling. There was one message I'd ignored back then, sent months before everything fell apart. Can we stop making fun of each other for sport? I just want peace again. I'd never responded. I'd shown it to Carla at the time and laughed, calling him dramatic. I closed my eyes. If guilt had a sound, it would be the quiet hum of that memory, replaying on a loop. Sometime after midnight, I went to the backyard one last time. The air smelled of grass and rain. I set down the coiled lights, still tangled from earlier, and plugged them in. They flickered weakly to life, casting a pale glow across the empty yard. For a moment, I imagined Graham standing there again, holding a plate, smiling softly while everyone laughed. I'd never realized how rare that smile was until I'd chased it away. I whispered into the wind, "You were right. I just wanted an audience." The lights swayed gently in the breeze, dimming one by one until only a single bulb remained. I stood there watching it until it went out. When I went back inside, the rooms were dark, except for the faint streetlight spilling through the window. I packed the last of the kitchen things in silence, taping the box carefully shut. Before bed, I wrote him one final email. Not to send, just to say what I never could. You were never the problem. I was just afraid of quiet because it made me see myself. I hope you stay calm forever. I deleted it immediately, watching the message disappear. The next morning, movers arrived to take the furniture. By noon, the house was almost empty. Before I left, I stood at the doorway one last time. The echo of my footsteps sounded unfamiliar. Out on the lawn, I looked back once. The "for sale" sign had already been replaced with "sold." A couple walked past with their dog, talking softly. They didn't even glance at me. And maybe that was what I deserved, to fade quietly into the background of a neighborhood I'd once dominated with laughter and noise. I got into my car, closed the door, and started the engine. The street stretched ahead, quiet and calm. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the urge to make anyone laugh. I just drove, letting the silence fill the space where my voice used to be. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.